Starshines, Tangent Spinner here, spinner of tangents and ranter of randoms. Welcome to another video. I hope you guys liked the intro. I worked hard on it. I'm learning, guys. Bear with me, please bear with me. Thank you so much. Welcome to another Let's Read of WebMage by Kelly, whose name I still can't, last name I still can't pronounce. The last chapter was the last chapter, which was just chapter 1, was 34 minutes. I'm so sorry. And almost the entirety of the video is incredibly out of sync, which again, I am so sorry. God, it was horrible to watch, but I couldn't figure out how to redo it. It was like through 2 a.m. and by the time I finished it, and I couldn't figure out how to make it back in sync. I didn't want to have to refilm the whole thing. So I figured that the issue was that the file was just too big for my phone to handle. So I'm going to be making these shorter videos to about 15 or so minutes, give or take. I have an intro. I have an outro as well. You guys will have to watch. I have no idea how to make a video appear in the square that it offers, but I have one. So there. I might have to actually edit it figure out how to get it on my computer and edit it there instead of on my phone. But anyway, sorry guys, sorry. Today we're going to be reading chapter 2. Chapter 2. It's backwards, but there you go. And like I said, this video will only be about 15 minutes, give or take, unless we finish the chapter early, in which case it'll be until the end of the chapter. But I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm already 2 minutes in. Alright guys? Alright, thanks. Chapter 2. On the other side of my dorm room was a dorm door, already off to a great start. On the other side of my dorm door was a huge figure dressed in lamellar armor. From the demon-faced helm, the voice said, "Say good night, Gracie." Then a massive fist holding an Afghani punch dagger slammed into my chest, right over the heart. The blow knocked me halfway across the room. It felt like it cracked a rib as well, but thanks to the multi-layer Kevlar lining Texac built into all its racing gear, it failed to kill me. I didn't think I'd get lucky twice. Hand-to-hand in a small room with my cousin Morg was a recipe for quick death. His abilities as a sorcerer are not fantastic, but for the past couple of 100 years he's been focusing them on physical enhancement. On that score, there aren't many in the family who can match him. In this case, discretion was the only part of valor. Unfortunately, he was between me and the door. That left exactly one possible exit. Holding my helmet in front of me, I dived through the window pane. That solved the immediate problem, but left me outside of the window of my 20th floor room. Melchior, fear of falling, execute now, now, now! The goblin stuck his head out of the bag. Executing! We dropped 9 floors. A pre-recorded version of a spell spewed from his tiny blue lips. At 1,000,000 or so kilobaud, it sounded like a whippoorwill on speed, but it did the trick. 3 floors above the ground, our headlong plunge became a leisurely drift. I pulled on my helmet and gloves. It looked like I was going to need them before I ever got to my motorcycle. My feet had barely touched the ground when something struck me from above the collarbone and burned across my neck. More by reflex than conscious thought, I tucked my chin into my chest. So the second arrow struck the chin piece of my helmet instead of my throat. The arrow shattered, my helmet cracked, and my head just about came off. I could taste blood from a mashed lip. Groggily, I turned and dashed for River Road and the cover of the cars parked there. 2 more arrows hit me in the back as I went, but didn't pierce the Kevlar. I was going to need a new jacket and a pile of painkillers, but at least I wasn't leaking any precious bodily fluids. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry again. Okay. Once I reached the door, I ducked behind an old Dodge Ram and opened my jacket far enough to grab my pistol. Then I carefully zipped it up again. I needed all the protection I could get. I also needed a plan. If this conflict stayed purely physical, I was going to die. I am significantly stronger, tougher, and faster than a normal human, but so is everyone in my extended family. When you put me on a scale filled only with my relatives, the picture changes completely. I weigh in firmly in the featherweight division. Mark and his brothers are all ultra heavyweights with attitude. Unfortunately, I don't do my best thinking under pressure. The arrows smashing into the truck didn't help. A plan that would have to wait until I could put a little more distance between me and my homicidal cousins. The only problem was how to do that. The archer, probably Darren, who pulled a 225-pound bow, was shooting at me from the ramp where my cycle was parked. I couldn't stay where I was. I couldn't get to my bike. Mark would be out of the dorm, back in the game shortly, and Hal was out there somewhere as well. To my left, River Road wound past the parking ramp. To the right, it curved sharply north and went under the Washington Avenue Bridge. Directly across from me, a thin strip of trees masked a steep plunge to the Mississippi. I considered the choices. Then, keeping the cars between me and the ramp as much as possible, I headed for the bridge. I was almost there when I heard a low, gurgling growl. Intellectually, I'd known Hal must be around someplace. Emotionally, I'd been pretending he didn't exist. So much for that. I tapped my shoulder bag. "Mel," I whispered, "you still alive in there?" A muffled voice replied, "Battered but serviceable, boss." "What do you want?" "Melchior, red eye. Execute." Executing. My visual range expanded to the infrared, and I peered at the gap under the bridge. A broad, hulking, inhuman shape lurked there. Eyes, lamp-bright in the VR, glared at me. Hal. Yippee! Careful not to make any sudden movements, I thumbed the .45 safety off. Hal took a step before me. My intestines did a backflip with a half-twist. The things Hal had used his magic to do to himself gave me the screaming creepies. Forcing myself to move with precision, I snapped the pistol up into line and fired 4 quick rounds at his knees. I could see bone and tissue shatter and pulp under the impact of the heavy copper-jacketed slugs. Turning to my right, I ran up the slope of the bridge, cursing all the way. It might take several minutes for Hal's injuries to mend, but mend they would, especially with a full moon. Lacking silver weapons, nothing I could do would keep him down. That's why I'd aimed for the knees. Almost any other wound he would have taken and kept coming, but even a were can't walk with broken knees. My options were rapidly narrowing. Hal had pushed me into a narrow killing ground. On my left was the long, barren expanse of concrete that made up the car deck of the Washington Avenue Bridge. On my right, the alien stainless steel angles of the Wiseman Art Museum gleamed in the moonlight. The twisted mirrors of its construction threw my distorted reflection back at me. Something about it spoke to me, and I paused to look at it, and, finally, to think. I touched the cold metal. The warped picture in its depths seemed to offer me refuge. It was the message I needed. Turning around, I grabbed hold of one of the I-beams that supported the upper deck of the bridge, and hand over hand handed my way up it. I crawled over the rail at the top a few yards from the doors to the Wiseman. They were locked. They were also glass. A small concrete and steel ashtray stood nearby. I picked it up and heaved it through the glass. A brutal, clanging alarm went off. As a sort of counterpoint, I could hear the approaching wail of police sirens, probably in response to the gunshots. In a few minutes, the whole area was going to be flooded with cops. Unless the officers were really very lucky, they were going to end up going toe-to-toe with my cousins. I winced. But the only thing I could do about it was to remove myself from the equation as quickly as possible. My phone's about to do that thing where it shuts off real quick, so I'm going to pause real quick. 3, 2, 1, boo-doop, be-doop, and we're back. Sorry, guys. Alright. With the additional spur, I raced down the main stairs and into the Red Gallery, where they exhibit a distorted mirror. Our world through the eyes of the new surrealist was housed. I turned left, past the sculpture of a giant melting chihuahua, and started looking for the right sort of painting. Before an electronic web tied the worlds together, there had been an artistic one. Almost from humanity's beginning, there had been artists interested in representing and interpreting the world around them. A small but significant number of them can see past their own world to paint the others beyond. In the early years, my grandmother and her sisters had used such gateways as their primary means to travel between the spheres. Of course, as the centuries went by and the technology advanced, they developed better and better methods for travel and control, eventually establishing the ImWeb. It was quick, powerful, and easy to integrate with the growing electronic nets of the inner worlds. But the old ways still existed. They'd just fallen into disuse. There were drawbacks. Each of the artistic gateways goes to only one other world, and there's no way to reset them. They were also slow to make and difficult to use, to say nothing of the interface. On the other hand, anything that stood a chance of getting me out of this deck locus alive was worth trying. "Boss," hissed Melchior, pointing, "how about that one?" It was clear across the gallery and half hidden by a pillar, but when I finally spotted it, I instantly found myself drawn by its magic touch jewel tones. And not only was it a gate, but it even looked like it might go someplace nice. A big plus in my book. I didn't want to cross through into some raving psychotic artist's personal vision of hell. "Nice work, Mel." I lifted him out of the bag. "How'd you spot it?" "Actually," he said after a long pause, "I remembered it. We came here for class last month." "Good thing you thought of it," I said, though I was a bit puzzled. I remembered the trip quite well. I'd needed to write a paper on a piece of sculpture for my art appreciation class, but I'd done all the work in a different gallery. I didn't think I'd even come to the surrealist exhibit. A sharp yell from outside, followed by a couple of shots, forced my mind back to the present. "Mel, I need you to set up a deck locus transfer to wherever this picture goes, but if we don't want to just continue this on the other side, we're going to need to make sure no one follows us." He looked at me suspiciously. "How do you propose we do that?" "You're not going to like this, but it's the only way. Melchior, burnt offerings. Oh, the little bastard cut me off. "I really don't think that's such a good idea, boss. Not only is it excruciatingly painful, but if anything goes wrong, we could be—" I held up a hand, and he slowed to a stop. This latest example of an unusual amount of initiative made me wonder again about what was up with his programming. I shook my head. Later. "I don't want to hear it, Melchior. I don't want to hear it. Melchior, burnt offerings. Execute." "Executing," came the resigned response. Then he waited for me to do my part. It was my turn to try and think of an excuse to avoid what came next. It was going to hurt, but I couldn't think of any alternative. Sticking the tip of my left pinky into my mouth, I bit down hard on the first joint. The pain was incredible, and I thought I was going to black out. But it was this or die. I bit down harder. I gagged as the thick, salty taste of blood filled my mouth, but I kept biting. With a sickening pop, the cartilage gave, and the tip of my finger came loose. I spat it on the floor, then turned and threw up. When I turned back, Melchior had paired my fingertip with one of his own, and, using the blood from his maimed hand, was inscribing a diagram around them. From his bloodied lips came a steady stream of spell data. Now we'd see if it worked. It was a good theory, and I'd run it through my spell checker looking for bugs dozens of times. But, for obvious reasons, this wasn't an enchantment I'd been willing to beta test. I'm actually going to pause there because my timer's going down, guys. But, like I said, I'm going to do the next video immediately, so it's going to take off immediately from that point. No difference, anything like that. Tell me what you guys think so far about intro, outro, the story itself, so far, anything like that, what you think is going to happen. But, yeah. I'll see you guys next video. Again, let me know how you know. Tangent's going to spin on out of here. But remember, guys, you're all my sunshines, okay? Have a nice night or day, whatever. Tangent out.